Recently, I posted this graph to Twitter, which shows the T-side win rate for every single HLTV match on Anubis. These data points are made up of the average T round win percentage of the last 100 matches played. If instead of doing every last 100 matches for an average, I did every single match and tried to find the average of that, the data wouldn't be very useful because we couldn't point out any trends in the map's win percentage going up or down. But from the 100 match moving average, we can see that there was a peak of about a 60% T-side round win rate, which would mean that for every average pro Anubis game, the score was 7.2 rounds for the T's every single half. Anubis is a unique map since it really hasn't gotten a single major update since CS2's release, and really since the end of CSGO. And the only update is that it was just ported over, and the boat was removed in the boat area. So why is Anubis so T-sided? Now for a message from the sponsor of today's video. If you want a safe and secure way to cash out your skins in under 5 minutes, head on over to sellyourskins.com. Sellyourskins.com has over 150,000 users who have used the site already. All you have to do is click the Sell tab, select your skins, and use my promo code BIRD for a 5% bonus on your skins. That's BIRD, BIRD. No shady cash traders or middlemen, just a few clicks and you're cashed out to any of the methods you see here. Head on over to sellyourskins.com and use my code BIRD for a 5% bonus on all of your skins. Thank you to Sell Your Skins for sponsoring this video. This video is going to show you how a map's layout is enough to shift CS2 from being a game that's CT-sided to being T-sided just from the map being different. I'm not going to call Anubis a bad map for doing this, because I really enjoy this map and a lot of other people do too. But I like it a lot more than maps like Inferno, which are pretty historically balanced. Alright, so let's just start from the bare basics. So remember that in CS2, the Ts are forced by the game to make decisions in order to win the round. And the CTs are given the round for free if the Ts fail to meet an objective. So that means with no game plan, no movement, no anything, the game is CT-sided no matter the map. So what about this map actually makes it so easy for the Ts? Well, in order to truly think about this, we need to think about why other maps aren't T-sided. Let's look at Inferno, since in my opinion, this map showcases the best form of this concept in CS mapping that I'm going to describe. At the start of most rounds, the Ts and CTs find meeting points around the map where they clash between each other. On Inferno specifically, these are in Banana, down middle, second middle, and apartments. There's something that isn't entirely obvious about these parts of the map that I want to explain. And if you guess that it's that you can fall back to many different positions throughout the round, then you partially understand my point. In Banana, you could simply fall back into angles like CT and Coffin if you're pushed away by the Ts. And then you can fall further back into Church and Deep Spawn if the Ts do more to you to try and win. In Mid, you can fall back to both short and long, then in Deep Arch, then in Arches, in Library or Moto, or from short, you can fall into Pit and into Site. In apartments and second mid, you can slip back out into a safe position in the same way. You can draw similar lines to what I've done here for every single map in the pool. But on Anubis, it starts to get a bit strange compared to the other maps. While on other maps, you have a diverse, long range, and relatively safe way of falling away from key areas, on Anubis, you're forced to do something that no other map does, and you're forced to fight to the death or give the site. Let's take a look at the meeting points for Ts and CTs. You have the entrance of A main, middle, E box, and B main. So let's go one by one to look where you're forced to play on many rounds as a CT. If you start in A main early, Ts can simply throw nades like a smoke to block you in, a Molotov for the close corner, and a flash to blind you if you somehow dodged all of these. Now, if you were in there but you got out successfully, you're forced into somewhere in the site where you're either going to pick maybe 3 or 4 of these key angles or play in some random off angle. Or you could just completely give the side up and play retake. And now when the Ts come and throw an execute onto A within a few seconds from now, they can clear all of these angles anyways with utility, meaning that you have really nowhere to go but to fight and die, or leave and play retake, which is an incredibly T-sided situation. In middle, you can start by peeking early, but if Ts throw 2 mollies at the start of the round, they can force you to leave without them peeking themselves. Thus, you get sent back into bad spots like Camera and Temple, where you're easily pre-aimed. This means that in these angles too, you'll have to fall back again, and if you fall back from Temple and the other team goes A with a smoke, you're completely out of the round. But if you're Camera, it's just like the A main player, and you're forced to play somewhere towards heaven, meaning that you're probably gonna have to give the site, and you're in another retake again. I'm gonna split B site into B main and E box, and let's talk about E-box first. When you start the round, you can either take the risk that the T isn't playing and holding with an op and try to fight it, or stand close and listen for footsteps of players that are trying to run up into E-box. After you either fight and win, fight and lose, or just leave, you're forced to play in towards either Yekindar Pillar, back site, back plat, temple, or long. There's really not that many positions. If you choose to play Yekindar or back plat, you're almost 100% committing to fully fight for the site, and you have no option to leave anywhere. If you choose long, temple, or back site, you're basically forced into giving the site, since the smokes that are thrown by the Ts commonly block off all of these angles very comfortably for the Ts. Now B main is a similar story to E box, except for the fact that when you peek, you have a very low win percentage fight to try and win if you choose to push early or even later into the round. The Ts can play in any of one of these off angles, and they can hold you at all parts of the round. So it's very, very hard to try to win these fights without sending multiple people here. But the story still remains the same as E-Box, where unless you're able to kill more than one T at the start of the round, you're pretty much SOL, and forced to fall back into the positions mentioned surrounding E-Box. All of these critical meeting points and battlegrounds of the map share one thing in common. It's that you're either forced to play in a quote-unquote stuck position, meaning you have to stand your ground perfectly in order to win the round with your teammates, or completely fall back and play for a retake. This is not true for other maps in the game. From my experience, I can list each bomb site and tell you if it's better to play by holding it or by retaking it. And each playstyle has its benefits and its drawbacks, but typically this is the best practice for each one of these maps. Now, obviously you don't have to play in this manner, but this is generally what's better on each bomb site, as it's been found to have just the best success rates from all the teams that I've played on and watching all these other pro teams play the game. And what all these retake sites have in common is that it's easier for the CTs to get a kill on an execute than on the other bomb site. So like A site on Ancient, it's very easy to get a kill from Temple and CT and be perfectly safe. Or it's very easy to re-clear parts of the map that Ts have taken in that part of the round. So for example, like A site on Mirage, it's very easy to clear out Firebox, the entire bomb site, peeking into Sandwich. All these angles are pretty commonly and comfortably cleared. It doesn't mean you're gonna have the best success rate, but it means that it's doable. Now, the absolute quote-unquote perfect Counter-Strike would be to get a kill, be up in an advantage, and then retake the bomb site. Anyone who plays Counter-Strike knows that it's often just complete chaos all the time. And so this kind of dream of a perfect game is just a pipe dream. It's impossible. But it also means it's better to play in this kind of general idea of sites that you hold and sites that you retake. Because on a lot of these bomb sites where it's a better option for the CTs to sit and try to hold them, it's going to almost be impossible to do a retake unless you're much better than the other team. And so for example, B side on Mirage is almost impossible to retake against people who are better than you because their crossfire setups are so hard to break versus A site where it's a lot easier to break those crossfires. On Anubis, however, if you overcommit to holding the bomb site and you go down in a man disadvantage as a CT, it's almost impossible to retake any of these bomb sites. Or on other maps, you can still make this calculation and try to go for the win. Another part about why these retakes are so unbalanced on Anubis specifically is that the T's utility is not in a balanced state compared to what the CTs have to use in order to clear the same angles that the T's cleared at one point while they're going for the retake. So on A, when the T's are taking, they can throw a Heaven Smoke, Camera Smoke, they can Molotov Broken Wall, they can Molotov the Pillar, and Cake, plus they can throw flashes through the windows. This kind of utility can deal with upwards of 3 to 4 players, but when the CTs try to go for the retake, they're usually coming from heaven and middle, and they're not usually flanking. Meaning that unless 5 people decide to go against the grain and do the exact same T execute back to the Ts to retake the bomb site, the CTs are going to have a really hard time clearing everything like the Ts did. And part of why it's so easy for the Ts to do this is because the CTs are playing with a lack of information. But if you had 5 people on your team, whether it's T or CT, and you knew exactly where all the other 5 CTs are going to come from, pretty easy to hold the bomb site. B site is just like A site, as Ts can throw a left side smoke, they can throw a temple smoke, they can Molotov backplat, they can Molotov jail, and this clears most angles out. Plus the fact that they're probably splitting from E-Box at the exact same time. But the CTs have such an awkward position from temple and CT that it's almost impossible to do the exact same thing in reverse. Plus, they have to reverse clear E-Box on most rounds and worry about B main. And this makes retakes more possible in 3 versus 3s and below, but anything above this, and it's just complete hell for the CTs to try to go for this. So all these contributing factors are what makes Anubis uniquely T-sided. But what can be done to change this if Valve wanted to do so? And I'm going to preface this section of the video with saying the only mapping experience that I have in CS is making a KZ map for CSGO when I was in college, which was so much work for a map that looks so basic that it's kind of sad. But if you want, you can re-download CSGO and play my map on any KZ server where the global API is enabled. So in my opinion, pretty large and sweeping changes are going to have to happen to the map if we want to expand the retake options for the CTs, since there basically aren't any that are equivalent to what the Ts have in their belts. What we would have to do is give the CTs better retake options that equate in strength to the advantages that the Ts have, or at least slightly underweight them, because once again, the game is inherently CT-sided. So we can't give too crazy of options for the CTs to try to come back with, because that's just going to break it in the opposite direction. For early and mid-round balancing, Honestly, I think the map is pretty great. If you wanted to really make this map more CT-sided, you'd have to make huge changes to areas like mid and B main, which might just be too overwhelming and completely break the map. That's kind of what happened with Vertigo and how it got broken by Valve with the elevator changes. So I think we're gonna need to expand the already existing options just a little bit. And that means to not add some random corridors or break new holes in the wall that you can walk through, that kind of stuff. We don't want to be doing that to this map. At the very least, the walls in Temple could be opened up with, big holes to throw retake utility but not actually run through, which is similar to how Skybox on Cache allowed for nades to be thrown onto the bomb site on T-side takes. Because if this room didn't exist, you basically couldn't throw nades into B side on Cache. I think that on A site, if you lowered the heaven wall a little bit, and added a little bit of a lower ceiling so you could bounce nades off them, kind of like what you can do on B-side Inferno, you'd be able to throw retake nades that rivaled the T's take nades to clear out very hard to clear positions like Cake or Pillar, since these angles are so strong that you need to be much better than the opponents to stand a chance on the retake. Otherwise, these crossfires are practically unclearable. Is the map being T-sided even a problem though? I'm not really too sure, since the map is pretty great in all honesty. And with me being a sample size of 1, I'm not sure if the map should be changed. Let me know what you think about these ideas in the comments below, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future.